First things first, thank you. It's a real honor for me to be here, and I do not take it for granted. I don't take your time for granted. I don't take being invited for granted. And I'm showing up serious about wanting to make the next 90 minutes meaningful for you. So I'm going to do the best I can, and I hope it hits that target. So 10 years ago this month, I stood up in a ballroom in Falmouth, Maine, just outside of Portland, in a room filled with our biggest customers. These were general contractors, developers, home builders, commercial contractors from all over Maine and New Hampshire. The room was full with our top accounts. The entire sales team was in the back of the room, and I was sweating because I was nervous, because I knew what I was going to say out loud for the first time. And here's what I said. Mind you, this was a room full of our top customers. I took a deep breath and I said, you know that old saying, the customer comes first? Well, I don't believe that's true anymore. I immediately had the attention of the entire sales team in the back of the room who was hearing this live for the first time. I went on to explain myself. I said, here's what I've come to believe. I've come to believe that the people who are going to take care of the customer should come first. And if a company were able to take world-class care of its employees, that those employees would in turn take world-class care of both the customer and the company. So now what I'm fond of saying, this is a piece of Maine slang. This will test whether or not you're from Maine or have spent time in Maine. So now what I'm fond of saying is at Hancock Lumber, our family business, the customer comes a wicked close second. We are really into our customers, really into them. We love them. We appreciate them. We don't take them for granted. We're focused. We hustle. We listen. We work for them, and we're grateful. But they do not come first. They come a wicked close second. In Maine slang, wicked means good. So the Red Sox played wicked great last night is something you'd hear somebody say in Maine. Since that time, and this is what I want to talk with you about today, I've been in pursuit of transformational, not incremental. That word's really important to this conversation. Transformational change in workplace leadership and in the workplace experience. I'm not interested in incrementally improving work culture. I'm interested in transforming it. I'm interested in work cultures where the power is dispersed, not collected, where the work is meaningful for the people who do it, where the work is engaging as defined by the people who do it, and where the work is energy giving, humanity uplifting, and not draining. And what I want to talk to you about this morning, with you about, is why I've come to feel that way and how an organization that was so inclined and interested might go about pursuing it. And let me say right off the bat that customers are a big winner in this approach. Consider this thought. In the 21st century, This is not the Industrial Revolution. This is not medieval Europe. In the 21st century, winning isn't winning unless everyone's winning. The customer doesn't win if employees lose. The customer doesn't win if employees suffer. The customer doesn't win if employees are stressed. The customer wins when employees win. And we've spent a decade telling our customers that our first priority is our employee team. And to keep it simple, our customers love that. They rally around that. Loyalty grew over that. Our customers, our employees spend a lot of, our customers spend a lot of time with our employees. They know them, they're friends with them, they care about them. And so they want to see them thriving at work and thriving as humans. Think about the stories we're telling ourselves these days about work. I'll give you three quick stories, real stories that I've experienced recently. I was in Kentucky not too long ago, visiting a friend of mine who owns and runs a lumber company there. And we were walking through his lumber yard when I asked the age old innocent question, how many people work for you? He's a distinguished, lovely Southern gentleman. He was working a cigarette as we strolled at a measured cadence. And I said, how many people work for you? He took a deep breath and said, oh, about half of them. It was the funniest answer I've ever heard to that question. So there's a perspective about work. Recently, I was asked to give a talk at a big manufacturing plant in Maine, which was a bit of a dangerous exercise by the owner to invite me. But he did, and I accepted. And I was talking to the entire plant floor employee team about the benefits of shared leadership, dispersed power, and a work culture that is safe for you to say exactly what you think. And there was a lot of head nodding in that group. After the talk, one gentleman from the plant floor waited quite some time to speak to me. And he shook my hand and he said, I love what you just said, but I got to tell you, the last time I said what I thought around here, I got sent home for a week. How about this line? Have you heard this one lately? No one wants to work anymore. Am I the only one that's heard that? So that has my interest, and I can't leave it alone. I was with a friend of mine who runs a company, and he said, so frustrating. No one wants to work anymore. And we're good friends. So I hugged him first, literally hugged him. And I said, maybe. And maybe no one wants to work for you anymore. When people show up at Hancock Lumber, new employees, and join our team, we expect them to be showing up with past-based workplace trauma. We expect them to show up not willing to trust, not willing to say what they think, not believing that work can be energy giving. And we know that when we bring on new employees, we've got to help them unbundle, most likely, the trauma that they experienced at their last job or across their career. To support that, let's take a little deeper look, a statistical look at how work's going. So the data is screaming. And the question always is who's listening? This data all comes from Gallup. Across America, 165 million people work, and only 33% of them will say that work for them is meaningful or engaging. 2 out of 3 American workers do not find work meaningful or engaging. It is just an economic exercise. Globally, the data gets worse. On Earth, 3.5 billion people worked, and only 23% of them will say that that work is meaningful or engaging. This month in America, 3.3 million workers are going to quit. Not retire, not get let go, quit. In June, 3.3 million workers are going to quit. In July, 3.3 million workers are going to quit. In August, 3.3 million workers are going to quit. Gallup will tell you that 49% of all US workers will say they experienced stress at work yesterday. Not ever, not this week, not this year, but yesterday. Gallup will also tell us that 47% of all US workers will describe their personal life condition as either struggling or suffering. But we don't really know that as business leaders. And there's only one reason we don't know it, because we aren't asking, we aren't listening, and we aren't focused on it. That work experience is a problem. The average career, I use the number 70,000 hours, 30 years, 35 years. That data is not okay. It's not sustainable. Every company in America is running around trying to demonstrate, which is great, how sustainable they are. In work cultures like this, it's not okay. It's not sustainable. It's not optimal. Let's say the only thing we want to do is make more money. It's not even the best way to do that. And here's the big one, it's 100% unnecessary. Which brings me to kind of my first orientating thought, foundational thought. Companies and their leaders get whatever they choose to consistently prioritize. You can write that down and take it to the bank. You can take it one step further. Humans on this planet get whatever they choose to consistently prioritize. So if an organization is not getting something that it says it cares about, there's only one reason. It's not a consistent top level prioritization. I call this slide What Gallup Knows. And what they know is the solution to what I'm talking about is incredibly simple. It's like numbingly simple, embarrassingly simple, humbling numbingly simple. No one has researched the plates of work farther, wider, or longer than Gallup. And here's what they know. You could take all their data in their database, which they've done, and put it into this formula, which is a beautiful thing they've done. They've teed it right up for us. Here is what they know. The number one key to sustained corporate success is customer engagement. Here's the second thing they know. No, they're not guessing, they know. The number one key to sustained customer engagement is employee engagement. Here's the third thing they know. This is when it gets numbingly simple. Like quiet ping of truth in the room, simple. The number one key to employee engagement is one or more meaningful conversations a week with your supervisor. And here's the fourth thing they know. The definition of meaningful is beautiful and it's self-evident. The definition of meaningful conversation is 5 or more minutes about you, not your performance, not your review, not your metrics, you. And it doesn't happen. And no one gets it. Think about how low a bar we could roll over that bar. We could lay down and roll over it. that for you to be engaged once a week, I need to invest 5 minutes in you. And you invest the other 50 hours in us. And yet it doesn't happen. Let me back up and quickly tell you how I came to see all this. We all adhere to a belief system. Otherwise, we don't have a strategy for dealing with a complex world. Here's my other favorite way to think about it. A point of view is a view from a point. Nobody sees what you see, which is why your voice is so important, because you're the only person looking at it from where you're looking at it. And my point of view is rooted in 3 dates: 1848, 2010, and 2012. 1848, that's the year our company, Hancock Lumber, began doing business. I'm part of the 6th generation of my family to work for our company. And I use the word for deliberately and intentionally. The company doesn't work for me. It's not there to serve me. It did just fine before I ever showed up. So before the first cannonball was fired in the Civil War, our company was doing business back up in Maine. And I'm part of the 6th generation of my family to have the opportunity to have run and led the company as its CEO and now as its chairman. And that's been a great blessing. And you can also picture the pressure that could come with that. So 2010, in 2007 and 8, as you will recall, the national housing and mortgage markets collapsed. And it was an incredibly stressful time on our company and industry. Our revenue fell by 40% in 36 months without losing a customer. It was an economic storm that could not be outrun. And I found it stressful. Big surprise. In 2010, at the peak of that collapse, I suddenly began to have trouble speaking. Something I'd always taken for granted and always done a lot of. When I went to talk, it felt like someone had fastened a seatbelt around my throat and was pulling it, squeezing it every time I tried to say something. And suddenly pushing out a few short sentences had become this undesirable athletic chore. So you may know this routine. So I went to a doctor and then another doctor and then another doctor and then another doctor. And then I ended up at the Mass Eye and Ear Institute in Boston on the 11th floor, looking over the Charles River, where Dr. Song gave me an exam and told me I had spasmodic dysphonia, which is a rare neurological voice disorder with no known cause and no known cure. Which I cured. My voice is still really sensitive. I have a cold, so it is this anything will throw my voice into funky mode. So its funkiness today is the cold triggering the old voice. But I've largely cured it, even though it was uncurable, which is a story for another day. At the peak for years, I could not have talked to you and you could not have heard me. And the chance that I would be invited to do this or could have said yes was zero. I couldn't talk. And I'm trying to help lead our sixth generation lumber company through the absolute collapse of the housing market. When it's hard to talk, you quickly develop strategies for doing less of it. And mine at work was to answer a question with a question, thereby putting the responsibility for speaking right back on the other person. The last thing I was thinking about at that time was business leadership. I was in flat out survival mode. So picture this age-old scene. Someone would come up to me every day, all day, with a question or a problem because I was the owner, the leader, and the boss. Prior to my voice condition, what would I have done? I would have given an answer from on high, a directive, an instruction. But now I couldn't. So here's what I started doing just to protect my voice. I started saying this: gee, that's a good question. What do you think we should do about it? And he or she would tell me. Now, he or she knew way more about his or her part of the company than I did because they lived in it every day. So then I'd take another deep breath and I'd say, that sounds good. Let's do that. And I literally was running the company that way at its most fragile moment. And off he or she would go, picture this, with his or her solution to the problem that she or he identified. I was a little slow on the uptake, but after hundreds of conversations like that, something beautiful, powerful, and transformational struck me. And it was this: people already knew what to do. They already knew what to do. They almost never actually needed a top-down blessing or directive. So why were they asking? Because they'd been trained to. What they really needed was the encouragement and the work culture safety to trust, use, and follow their own voice because they already knew. Third date, in 2012, I somewhat serendipitously began traveling from my home in Maine to the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation in the southwest corner of South Dakota, often flying through Chicago. Has anybody ever been to the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation in the southwest corner of South Dakota? Two of us. That's about right. So the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation sits right above the Nebraska Panhandle, below the Black Hills. It is the biggest, most remote, poorest, and most historically disenfranchised of all the Sioux reservations on the northern plains. The people that live there today are the direct descendants of some of the most famous war chiefs and medicine men in American history, names like Red Cloud, Crazy Horse, Black Elk, and others. They once roamed the plains prosperously and freely as they pleased, following the seasons and the buffalo. And today, statistically, it is the poorest place in America. We had a national crisis in '08 when unemployment, I think, approached 10%. On the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation then and now, it's 80%. The lowest life expectancies in the Western Hemisphere are Haiti, number one, and the two counties that make up the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation, number two. I have a friend at Pine Ridge who once described their community's journey through modern American history as from first to worst. For today's purposes, here's the tie-in. At Pine Ridge, I met an entire community that had no voice. I grew up reading about the winning of the West. I grew up understanding that the West had been won. And there are people in communities like this, 7 generations later, still in free fall from the winning of the West. Winning isn't winning unless everybody's winning. From my voice condition and my time at Pine Ridge, I had 5 personal transformative learnings. At first, from my voice, for the first time in my otherwise privileged life, I actually understood and knew what it was like to not feel heard, because I literally often for years couldn't say what I wanted to say. And it was a terrible feeling. At Pine Ridge, second, I realized that there are lots of ways on this earth for humans to lose a piece of their authentic voice, and that leaders often tip it. Then that all got me thinking about the very third purpose or meaning of a human life on earth. And I said to myself, perhaps it's to self actualize. Maybe that is the one objective that all humans have in common, is to self actualize, that we're just here doing the best we can to find, know, love, live, and gift to the trajectory of humanity our own authentic, never to be repeated voice. Maybe that's the meaning of a human life on earth. So then I began pondering leadership's impact on self actualization, historic impact on helping those around us self actualize. And my personal conclusion was not great. I said, across human history, there have been some really progressive leaders who have seen this and lived this way. But in total, leadership as we know it has done more to limit, direct, restrict, coach, manage, exploit, and control the voices of others than to free them. And that's when the fifth realization, the big epiphany, came to me, which transformed everything for me. Perhaps my own voice condition, which I'd only previously experienced as a liability or a hindrance or quite literally a pain in the neck, was a gift and an invitation to lead differently in a way that dispersed power and gave other people's voice. And that's what I found the calling I'm signing up for. Because I had this opportunity, because I owned and ran a company, to not just contemplate this, to not just muse over it. I had an opportunity to try it across 700 people and 18 sites in Maine, New Hampshire, and Massachusetts. And out of that came this crystallized sense of purpose that we were going to become an employee-centric company, where the first mission of many exciting missions was going to be the well-being of the people who work here, that we were going to be a company that gave voice and power, and that we were going to make work meaningful. This is the second kind of foundational thought for me that I want to share. This simple formula, I think, is quite powerful. And it goes like this: what we see determines what we do. Makes sense. And what we do determines what we get. Makes sense. So if we want to get something different in our lives, our leadership careers, or our company, we must first come to see the world in a different way. Without a new see, there's no new do, and there is no new get. And this is right up the alley of the work you help do and champion and lead for your companies. Thinking, thought, and positioning of who we are and who we want to be. See, do, get. And right behind that, I'd like to share this thought, which I've pondered a lot. I think it's a grossly under-considered question. How is change created? Like, how often are you in conversations where people are really trying to get at that? I've thought a lot about the question, and in my own mind, I've put it in this formula. This is how change is created: within, beside, and beyond. It's a local inside job. The organization only changes if and when the leaders change, which never means the leaders are bad or ineffective or not great in so many ways today. That's not the point. The point is this: if the leaders want the organization to change in any way, they must become it. When I become something different, the people in my immediate circle begin having a different experience. That's the beside. And if that is sustained, the people in that immediate circle now experience change, and that change then travels beyond the people I'm actually dealing with directly and consistently to the frontline employees of the company, and even beyond the gates of the company, back home with them to their families and communities. Gandhi's iconic line: we must become the change we wish to see. But if we cared enough together this morning to cut to the chase, we could ponder why nobody wants to make this the focus. Because what's this require? What do I have to look at? Yes, I have to look at me. And that's not comfortable. Have you ever heard the great little parable of the mullah and his keys? So the mullah lost his keys, and he lost them in the house, and he couldn't find them. So then he went outside and was looking for them. And his neighbor came by and said, "Hello, mullah, what are you doing?" He said, "I've lost my keys. I'm looking for them." And the neighbor said, "Well, where did you lose them?" He said, "I lost them in the house." And the neighbor said, "Well, why are you looking for them outside?" And the mullah said, "Because it's so much brighter out here." And isn't that the way, unless we become really intentional? It is so much easier to be consumed with what everybody else needs to be doing. I spent the first half of my career believing that's what business leaders did. They paid attention to everybody else and they tried to change everybody else. And then my voice came along and I acquired a new C. And I've spent the second half of my career focusing 90% of the time on me. I am a full-time job. I don't know about you, but I am. I'm a full-time job. And when I turned my focus inward, I became something different. And this is 10 years later. This is not for the faint of heart or it's the quick fix. 10 years later, that rippled through our entire company, right beyond the gates and home with most everybody that works at Hancock Lumber. So I want to show you the system we used to do what I just talked about. But first, I want to tell you about the results you can expect if you were to if your organization were to choose to pursue an employee-centric path of inside out change creation leadership. Employee engagement actually is 33%. You could expect your organization's engagement to be 90% or higher. We've been a best place to work in Maine 11 years in a row. Statistically, 700 employees, blue collar industry, mills, trucks, forklifts, equipment. 9 out of 10 of our employees, confidentially, third party survey, describe their work experience as meaningful and engaging. And we're competing on average with lumber companies that have 33% engagement. Who do you think's going to win the long game? So we've done that 11 years in a row. When we take a survey, the participation rate's 95%. Like everybody in the company takes it because they know their voice matters and they know the company wants to hear them. Here are some soft changes, though, that you might not expect, or I didn't expect, that came with it until I looked at it and I was like, oh, it's obvious. Second thing that happened is over time, our decision making got way better. Put a price on better decision making. Why did our decision making get better? Because more people were included in the decision making and more people felt free to say what they actually thought. So the choices we were making got better. As all of that happened, the alignment and trust across the organization strengthened as accuracy, efficiency, and productivity grew. So the company's now becoming this machine, a bit of an indomitable machine. But then this is beautiful. And then a quiet calm pervaded the entire organization. We are hustling, competing, growing, moving, delivering 25,000 deliveries last year. When I go to any site in our company, everybody's got all day to talk to me. You would think our sales were zero if you looked at how much time people had. The stress dissipated, the panic dissipated, the sweat went away, and calm pervaded. And so we were creating a ton of capacity and we used that to grow, sell more, ship more. But here's the other thing we did. We used it with intention to just plain work less. We took our average hourly work week from 49 hours to 40. Now extrapolate that give back in time over a 35-year career. The only problem with reducing the hourly work week for hourly paid employees is what? They're going to make less money. So we reinvented our pay system and we gave everybody a raise that made up for the overtime. And we built brand new bonuses that paid for team activity. If we were to stop right now at each table and say, invent the worst possible pay system you can think of, you'd invent overtime. That's what you'd invent. It rewards one thing. What does it reward? How long it takes. The longer it takes, the more I make. When actually, what does everybody really want? For it to take less time. So we changed the economic incentives. We're giving back time. Capacity expands, profit soars, cash soars. When I leave today, I'm jumping on an airplane because we're buying our first lumberyard in Massachusetts. We don't borrow from the bank anymore. I didn't know you could have a lumber company that didn't borrow from a bank. We don't even use our bank anymore. And it's all because we put the focus on the humans at work. And this is how we did it. Which again, consistent with what I'm saying, I'm not saying this is how you would do it. I'm not saying you would do it. I'm just showing you this is how we did it. And you can take with that, what you like. Again, you're gonna see the same theme. These things we did, I'm a little embarrassed to come out here and talk to you because these things we did are just exceptionally simple and easy. And so it's like, well, that's not deep enough, rich enough, top secret enough, complicated enough. Here's what we did. Number one, long-term prioritization. How long? Permanently. I've made that super clear. As long as I'm alive, this is what we're doing. It's never changing. Think about the simplicity in that and the clarity. So if you didn't like that, if that didn't interest you, wouldn't you be happy to know that so you can go do something else? And if you did like it and it interested you, great. Long-term prioritization permanently from the top. This is not delegatable. Any C-suite that wants to delegate this, no matter how talented they are, won't get it, can't do it. It's not delegatable. And the great business thinkers tell us this over and over again. Simon Sinek, Jim Collins. What don't you delegate? People and culture. You can't delegate people and culture. Peter Drucker. Culture eats strategy for breakfast. Jim Collins. First who, then what? But we're talking here about a healthy, energy-filled, generative who. So number one, long-term prioritization. My theme song for this mission comes from Dido, an Eric song. I literally play this in my coaching workshops. I will go down with this ship. Do you know that song? That is such a calming feeling as a leader. I will literally go down with this ship. If this doesn't work, I don't want to be in business. It's so freeing and simplifying to find that personal and organizational why. Second of the 10 points, inside out leadership. That's what I call it. The workshops I do on this topic now, everyone gets at their seat. There's one thing day one, and it's a little 3x5 mirror. We call it a mirror up workshop. The change you want in your life, the only path to it is through that mirror. So the leadership team, so that's easy to say. Like number two, oh, check. Like that's easy to say, right? But that's not that easy to do. And we have a management, we have an executive team of 9 people, a management team of 43 people, a supervisory team of 80 people. The only person that has to do this is me. I have to do this. And if I do it, it will ripple. And if I don't and tell them to, nothing will happen. That brings us to data. Human data. I'm doing a workshop next week on this topic for the biggest general contracting firm in Maine, their entire executive team. And I already said to them in an email, when you build a big building, think about how much data you have on that building. I've seen these contracting companies, they have data that will bury you on that building. Now show me all the data you have on your people. And again, the quiet ping of truth surfaces. So we made employee engagement our biggest metric. That became our number one statistical metric and goal. So, so now we had to overcome the problem of we didn't really have any data around how they are doing, because here's the key to employee engagement pursuit. This is critical. And again, so simple. Employee engagement is defined by them, not you. This is also humbling. This is where servant leadership is required. This is not about Kevin Hancock giving a big talk about why Hancock lumber is a great place to work. Employee engagement only gets to be defined by them. So we have to ask. And I'm sure you know that employee engagement is measurable, highly measurable. There are great survey companies, including Gallup, that have become statistically excellent at measuring engagement. And we take one of those surveys every year, and that survey becomes our single biggest data point. We say to every manager in the company, we know you have a lot of data to pay attention to and a lot of objectives to pursue, which might at times feel overwhelming. We don't want you to feel overwhelmed. So if you ever feel overwhelmed, just focus on this one. Just work on this one. If you're like, I can only do one thing, okay, do this. Just work on this. That's 12 years running. Just work on this. When you get up, just work on this. So let me show you. I don't know if you can read this, and we can circulate this for you later. I'm not sure it's readable, but this is a set of questions from our last survey that across 700 employees had 90% confidential agreement. Think about the power of these questions. The leaders in this organization care about employee well-being. 90% agree. I would recommend working here to a friend. 90% agree. I understand the long-term strategy of the organization. 91% agree. I'm given enough authority to make the decisions I need to make. 91% agree. I believe my job is secure. 91% agree. My supervisor treats me fairly. 92% agree. I have a clear understanding of my role. 93% agree. Think about these last three. I would recommend our products and services to a friend. 93% agree. Safety is a top priority. 94% agree. And this one is lovely. I'm willing to give extra effort to help this company succeed. 94% agree. So those are things we celebrate. And then we are exceptionally human. I'm talking to you this morning about who we aspire to be, which is not who we or I show up and be every day, every moment, everywhere. So we then pull out some of the low scores. And some of these questions are statistically the lowest scoring questions in America, including at Hancock Lumber. And we have these all segmented by location, supervisor, manager, site, type of business. And so this is not always the whole company, but it's certain parts of the company. The organization gives enough recognition for work well done. 75% agree. Nationally, that would be a high number. But that's not what we see. What we see is 25% don't agree. 1 out of 4 don't experience that. This one is a common low scoring question. Staffing levels are adequate to provide quality products and services. 69% agree, meaning 31% of the people on that team did not agree. This is probably, if I could pick one question, I'd probably pick it, or these next two, they're both so powerful. I feel I can express my honest opinion without fear of negative consequences. They're asked that question, and their supervisors know they're going to be asked that question. And every supervisor at this company knows that's my favorite question. And still, look where we are. 79% agree, which nationally might be amazing. But again, what I see is 21%, one out of five people at our company don't feel they can express their honest opinion without fear of negative consequences. And then the other one, changes that may affect me are communicated prior to implementation. 73% agree, which meant 27% didn't. If I do good work, I'll be rewarded. That's kind of important. And I love this question, and we take it on. And I won't go there today, but I could talk to you about what I've learned from this. This is a critical question, and we ask it. Most companies don't ask it. I don't want to talk about this. We really want to talk about this. My pay is fair for the work I perform. That's probably statistically the lowest scoring question in the US for those who survey. So this is our survey huddle system. Again, I'm embarrassed to fly to Chicago to show this to you because it's so simple. So forgive me. This is the system we double down on. So we take the survey. Every manager knows every year for the rest of their life, we're going to be taking this survey. And then it's our top priority. We get the data. The managers then get time with their data because you got to sift through it. You got to work the data, like all data. But then we want more context. So now we go into huddle, small group huddle. So a table this size. And we take a question. This is when we get brave, and this is so fun to watch this unfold. So I'll put up on the screen, I feel I can express my honest opinion without fear of negative consequences. And I say to you, this is one of our lowest scores. Does that surprise you? This is so fun and predictable. The first time you do this, here's what happens. Nothing is quiet. People are fiddling. And then there's one in every group. Some brave soul says, no, it doesn't surprise me. And here's all you do. I say, thank you for sharing that. Tell us more about that. And whatever you say, that's what you're going to hear from me. Thanks for sharing that. If the room hears, thanks for sharing that, thousands of times in a row, what happens? Yeah, you know. I find that when I talk to groups like this, all I really ever am is affirming. I might not have brought one thought to you that you didn't already know front and center or in some level of your being. It's just bringing it back to the forefront. So in these huddles, we're making it safe for people to say what they actually think. And when you make it safe for people to say what they actually think, and you have data to go with it, you get what I call the answers to the test. My favorite and our first lean manufacturing consultant used to say to us when she'd come into our manufacturing facilities, ask us a question, and we'd make a statement. She'd say, do we know that or are we guessing? And most of the time, we were indignant at first because we're like, well, you don't even work here. And we've been here since 1848, so we know. But here's the thing we saw in time way more often than we thought we were guessing. And so I love to use that now on the human side of the business. When we say, what's it like to work here? This would be the one takeaway that could really kickstart things to another level if it's not already happening. What's the one takeaway? What do we think the employee experience is? What do we want it to be? And is it that? Do we know or are we guessing? Because it only gets to be defined by them. that unleashes a whole host of cool activity. I'm going to read this quote to you in case you can't read it. It's from Mike Hall, who's one of our resident geniuses. We call him our innovation strategist because we just let him run around and do whatever he wants to do. But he loves this system, and here's how he described our journey. The first few years of the survey effort didn't produce a lot of action, but it produced a lot of data. And we just organized the data to discover what's bugging people the most, both at the corporate level and the branch level. And the process included talking to small employee groups, then going to work to fix things. You listen and then you fix, and you listen and you fix. And when you do that, the level of respect across the company just keeps rising. To get there, we had to revisit the purpose of listening. We had to recalibrate it. And again, to be clear, I had to recalibrate it. And here's how we've recalibrated. Listening is for understanding, not judgment. And this was a brand new seat for me. I spent the first half of my career, and I still fall into this trap all the time. I'll fall into it today, no doubt. The temptation is to listen to judge. But it is very freeing to let go of that and say, at work with employees, listening is for understanding. If we understand, we can work with that. Listening is for understanding, not judgment. One of the other big things we worked on is power dispersing technology. So we have this vision of dispersing power, but our technology generally collects and centralizes the information. A lumberyard's a classic example. About half the employees work inside. They're in sales and inventory and things like that, and they have the computers and they have all the information. And historically, the other half of the team works outside. They're with the customer in the yard, building loads, delivering, and they have no information. And we couldn't get any national or global lumber software company to be interested in what we were doing. So we went off and built our own software. And one of the big things we built out was, we call it our Yard Pro app, which essentially put all the information the company has in the store on a phone. We gave everybody in the yard a work phone, and they now have all the information everybody else has. Power dispersing technology. Here's another example, OTIF. So we use what we learned about listening to employees to listen better to our customers. And they told us the number one thing they care about is when they gave us an order, we delivered it on time and in full. There's a revelation. Who would have guessed that? But we know statistically that's what they care about. So we built our own software to track whether or not we were on time and in full. We call it OTIF, on time and in full. And it's tracked by the drivers who have the delivery, who are arriving at the site. It's not tracked by the top secret tracking team. It's tracked by the people doing the logistics. And no one can get in trouble with the data. The only goal is to know what's actually happening so that we can work on improving it. And then we built another app on the phone, so that the big success for us, everything we do ends up with a Hancock lumber truck on a construction site. And our goal when those trucks show up is that they're freighted, loaded to the brim, to the maximum legal weight the truck can be loaded. So now when our truck drivers get to a site, they take a picture of their truck on that site freighted, and they push a button, and that picture goes to every employee in the company. And it'll be I just got one from Joe Beard on Lake Winnipesaukee, where he's showing us the freighted load that he just delivered. and everyone that participates in it sees it. And this is not the marketing team running around trying to meet a truck and stage this stuff. It happens every day, all day. Power dispersing technology, which sometimes can be really simple on the safety side. This has been one of the fun ones. Instead of all the data, we just have asked everyone to just bring in a picture of someone or something that makes you want to be safe today so that you can get back to it. It's not the safety team building the safety wall, it's the team doing the work, building the safety wall. And then we tell everybody. So this led to rebranding. So most lumber companies want to tell you what windows they sell, who cares? What cabinets they sell, who cares? And what we want to tell you about when we market and brand is the people that you're gonna work with. And this will trickle. And so Jenny Edwards, who's almost 80, comes in every night as a second job and cleans our office. This is not a big corporate office. There are like 20 of us in a town in Casco that has one blinking light where I'm from. This is not like Chicago. She cleans the office, and regularly she leaves me post-it notes. And I'll just read you one. This note, post-it note, she happened to call me Chief. Safe travel these next few weeks. Keep the sunshine flowing in your heart and mind. You're among a group of people in this world who, by empowering your employees, has given many the opportunity to come out of the shadows and show the world what they do. One other. Thanks from the bottom of my heart. You, along with your leadership program, have helped me gain my self-respect and confidence. I'm going to cry when I read these to you. There are so many employees that could benefit from your program. This is how the world should run. Love, Jenny. This can reach everybody. And it needs to. These are two of my dearest friends on the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation. To my right in the picture is Varrola Spider, and to the left is Catherine Gray Day. We're in Varrola's house. When it rains, her house doesn't leak. It rains inside the house. Doesn't leak. It rains inside the house. And this is Catherine's quote that I won't ever forget. She referenced the phrase internalized oppression, which I, of course, had never heard or had to worry about before. And I said, "What's that mean to you?" And this is what she told me. It's just about being worn down generation after generation. The cavalry, the missionaries, the boarding schools. You wake up one day and it's all been internalized. When you've been oppressed over generations, it finally takes hold. The oppression takes hold within you. Once it takes hold within you, it's perpetuated from within. And then we act it out on ourselves. That's how deeply it's been ingrained. There is a global power shift unfolding, which, in my view, is why the world is so messy right now. Does the world feel a little messy to you? It feels messy to me, beautiful and organized in many ways, but overall messy. It's because we're transitioning. It's the Aquarian age energy, honestly. The traditional model, human organizational model, is the empire comes first. And more humans are waking up not okay with that anymore. And the new model that wants to unfold is that the individual comes first. Think about what's happening around us: the internet, solar power, wind power, remote work, self-publishing, Spotify, NCAA name, image, and likeness. It's all power dispersal. Wayne Gretzky, you know his famous quote, right? The greatest hockey player of all time. Again, so simple. They asked him, "What was your secret?" And he said, "I skated to where the puck was going, not to where it was. This is where the puck's going." And we can fight these things or we can embrace them. Now, this is not new knowledge either. Rudyard Kipling's The Jungle Book. Now, this is the law of the jungle, as old and as true as the sky. And the creeper that keeps it shall prosper, but those that forget it must die. Like the creeper that circles the tree trunk, the law runneth forward and back. For the strength of the pack is the wolf, and the strength of the wolf is the pack. So for Hancock Lumber to thrive, the 700 people that work there have to be thriving. That's almost inarguable. I've thought a lot about why this has worked so well for me and for us, and why I now see it everywhere. And the epiphany came to me alone in the Arizona desert on the Navajo reservation about a decade ago. I was walking at sunset, contemplating everything I just talked to you about, searching for the why. Why is this attracting me so? When those 5 words plopped into my head, literally plopped into my head, in nature, power is dispersed. And I froze in my tracks and I was like, oh my goodness, that is it. And then I panicked because I was about 2 miles from my car. I didn't have my phone and I didn't have a pen and I have a terrible memory. And I'm obsessed with this topic if you haven't figured it out. So I really wanted to remember this, and I kept repeating in my head, in nature, power is dispersed, about 100 times before I got back to the car. But before I started back, I stood and had an out loud conversation with the desert sunset landscape. And it went something like this. I said to that landscape, which was functioning so well, so effortlessly, so optimally, so smoothly. And I said to the landscape, I said, where's your headquarters? Where's your CEO? Where are all the managers and the supervisors? I turned to a stack of cactus and I said, which one of you is in charge of all the others? And with every question, the answer to me was inarguable. In nature, leadership is dispersed. The secret sauce lives everywhere. And we are awakening to the reality that humans are a part of nature, not separate from it. And we're simply trying to return back towards the energy from whence we came. And that's where humanity's going. And leaders and leadership can fight it, resist it, slow it down, drag it along, muck it up. We can do all of that because we have power, or we can get out in front of it and we can sail with it and we can run with it and we can make work meaningful. I'll close with this question, which is now on the back of every truck we have. Our competitors' trucks, again, are going to tell you what windows they sell and what kitchens they have. And this is what you're going to see when you look at our trucks. What if everybody on earth felt trusted, respected, valued, and heard? What might change? It's a tall order, but let's just pretend all 8 billion people at the same time felt trusted, respected, valued, and heard. What might change? Everything would change. Everything would change. And where might that change play out? Well, at the adult level, it would have to play out where adults hang out. And on this planet, 3.5 billion of them hang out at work. So that's where we'd have to do it, because that's where they are. And it's got the added wicked cool benefit of dramatically improving corporate performance. I'm talking dramatically. I'll share this with you for the ideas, not our company. We've been in business since 1848. We made more money from 2012 to 2024 than we had made from 1848 to 2011. And it's not like we were slouches, like we were good enough to get from 1848 to 2011. Companies can soar on the wings of thriving humans at work. I've seen it, I'm living it, and because I've seen it and I've lived it, I've become really passionate and thankful for opportunities like this to be with you and talk to you about the potential of those ideas. So what I'd like to do with maybe the 10 minutes we have left, if you would and are interested, is at your table. We'll keep this simple, like everything else we've looked at today. To maybe just talk about what you've heard, like what rung true to you and what didn't, or what's curious for you, or what would worry you, or what would you want to know more about. Just share all of it. And maybe one you all can, or one of you can be a scribe. And if we, for the group's voice, and then at the end, if we have a few minutes, maybe several tables can just share a thought or two about what was discussed at your table. So if it's okay, I'll give us about 10 minutes at the tables, and then to stay on schedule, just about 5 minutes to share from perhaps 3 tables. Thank you. So just to give us a taste, I was hoping maybe a few tables, someone could just share some part of what your table talked about. So if anyone would like to do that, just, yeah, great. We've got a microphone so
Hang
that
on.
everyone can hear you, and thank you.
So our conversation primarily centered on the meaningful conversation with about you and try to understand. Sounds like there's no boundaries. That whatever's important to that person is what that conversation should be about. We talked a lot about that. About is this a work conversation? Is this a what did I do over the weekend conversation? Um, and obviously as the more you do that, the more comfortable that person will become sharing and knowing that that's a safe place or a safe haven. And that breeds more conversation.
Ready for this? Thanks for sharing that. It was lovely. Thank you. Yes. Yes, there's a table over here.
Get my steps in.
So our conversation was about you're the top leader of the organization. So you're driving this. How or what recommendations do you have when like somebody at the lower level on the executive team, for example, is trying to drive this, but maybe the CEO or the top level person isn't on board yet. So how do you get the buy-in from the CEO? Because I mean, I hate to say it was easy, but you're the top guy, right? So could you talk a little bit about that?
Thank you for that great question. I'm so thankful that question came out, and it comes out every time as it should. Um, I'd answer it a few ways. Look at me today as an example. How much authority do I have at your company? 0. And yet I am here all dialed in, believing I could possibly have some influence on your company. Think about a lot of the greatest leaders that you admire and the titles they didn't have, whether it's Gandhi, Mother Teresa, any of the leading religious, spiritual leaders from Buddha to Jesus to Muhammad. These are titleless people who gave birth to ideas, right? So that's the first big thing I come to. The second big thing I come to is we all have the same play, which is to become the change we wish to see. Because it is true, everybody has boundaries. You know, if you're an employee, you've got boundaries. If you're a supervisor, you will run into boundaries. If you're a general manager, you have boundaries. If you're a C-suite, you've got boundaries. If you're the CEO, you still have boundaries. If you're a director, you have boundaries. So the only difference is where your boundaries land. But every human has boundaries. And I think the liberating, beautiful part of this exercise is to encourage people to try to transcend them. Every time I leave the Pine Ridge Reservation, I drive, I come to the South Dakota Wyoming border, and there's a big picture of a cowboy on a bucking bronco holding his hat in front of the Grand Tetons, and it says, "Welcome to Wyoming." And I stop in the middle of the road, which you can do there. In the middle of the road, you don't have to pull over. And I get out of the car and I leave the car running and I leave the door open. And I stand in the road and I say to myself, is that boundary real? And of course, I mean, it is real. There is a state of Wyoming and a state of South Dakota. I'm not, but is it real? And so I do think a big part of the human leadership quest is to transcend boundaries and to learn where power truly resides, which is within you. The only power source you've got is the one within you. And so, yeah, you will run up against boundaries, but you can still choose to live a certain way and bring a certain energy. And then ultimately, in a mobile world, you can choose who you want to work for. And I like people voting that way. So I don't have a perfect answer to that real challenge other than to say it is real. And we've got to pursue it anyway, despite its realness. Lovely question. Thank you.
We've got time for maybe one more comment.
One more. Yes.
So yeah, we also talked about the power of that 5 minutes, and it was kind of a common theme for us as well. And what we kind of took away from that, and really your entire message, someone at the table said it so beautifully, was just consistency and being consistent not only in the intention but also the action, and just really living that through. Um, and then the only thing I wanted to share, this gentleman here at our table, was a great idea, and something I really like was, he said he framed up those kind of personal 5-minute connections outside of the office or away from the desk. So, go and grab a cup of coffee and catch up with your team. Or if you've got remote employees, encourage it or schedule it. Like, let's take a walk, even if we're remote on the phone, and just get away from the computer and connect, because we still tend to overthink it and make it about work and make it very tactical instead of intentional. So that was just a really good takeaway for me that I liked.
That's so lovely, so powerful, and thank you for sharing that. We're done because you have other things to do, and I do too. I'm going to be on a plane at 10:35 to get to Boston to meet this company we're buying today to try to tell them exactly what I told you. This is a group of 20 people in a small company. I do just want to say, this is how they say it at Pine Ridge, Wopila Tonka, which means big thanks. And I'm honored for the opportunity and the gift of your time. And I'm so reachable. You can find me and email me, and I will answer you right back. And love and light to you, and with gratitude. And I'm out of here. Thank you. Thanks so much. It's good. Thank you.